Hey, you're back! Welcome to the Black Crusader, the tally of sin, where I count down the 5 good and evil things done by a character who I made a video about. This time we're presiding over the judgment of the Emperor of Mankind. Since good and evil are concepts that do not belong in the 40k universe, I will judge the Emperor's actions from the perspective of the Imperium. It is important to remember that these are my personal opinions, so if you guys disagree with them, that's fine too, as I would love to hear what you think. Alrighty, let's get started. Cue intro. The Emperor was born. Doesn't seem like much of an achievement, does it? I know it seems like an odd choice, but hear me out. The Emperor is a creature that came into being in not exactly the most natural of ways. Instead, a group of shamans voluntarily committed mass suicide to combine their souls into a single entity. Now, this new being is something new that had never quite existed before. Its soul could not be devoured by the predators in the warp, and it was more than their equal in both the physical plane and within the Immaterium. This was something completely unheard of at the time and provided the galaxy with an opposite to the growing powers of chaos. This new creature was so powerful that even the demons of chaos feared it and gave it the name the Anathema. You could say by the simple act of bringing himself into existence, the Emperor gave the galaxy hope. When the Emperor launched the Great Crusade, he preached the imperial truth. Amongst other things, this ideology denounced all other religions and claimed that gods, demons and souls were simply the creations of the superstitious. Yet this simply wasn't true, as the 40k universe does have godlike beings that do interact with the physical world on a daily basis. Even though the Emperor perpetuated this lie in order to protect humanity, he was destroying entire cultures based on an ideology that he knew was wrong. Being the epitome of human potential, it perhaps comes as no surprise to know that the Emperor was a tactical genius and a great warrior. As the Emperor completed the Unification Wars, he brought peace to the cradle of humanity for the first time in centuries. Recreating his success on a much grander scale, the Emperor launched the Great Crusade, which brought thousands upon thousands of human worlds into the fold of the Imperium, while eliminating hundreds of potentially dangerous xeno-species. While not without its own sins, the Great Crusade would unify humanity as never before, while at the same time laying the groundwork for the Imperium that was to come. Until the little incident known as the Horus Heresy happened. You know, I really wanted to put the creation of the Astartes on this list, but I just can't, considering what happened to their predecessors. The Thunder Warriors were the Emperor's chosen elite during the Unification Wars. They were much stronger and more aggressive than Space Marines, but lacked their long lifespan and weren't as stable. To this end, the Emperor deemed it necessary to eliminate them towards the end of the Unification Wars. To cover up this betrayal, the Emperor created a myth of how the last Thunder Warriors died during one of the final battles for Unification, while in truth they were killed off by the Emperor's own troops. These were his own troops, mind you, and it seems just like a very ignominious way for them to go, considering there were other options on the table. Maybe Horus wasn't completely mad when he launched his heresy. Seeing as how instrumental the Mechanicum is in the life of the Imperium in the 31st millennium, it would be hard to imagine that there was a time when Mars and Terra were in open conflict with one another. While not the most hated of foes, Mars and Terra would often compete against one another for domination of the Sol system during the period known as Long Night. This would all change with the coming of the Emperor, whose abilities would convince the tech priests of Mars that he was the embodiment of the Omnissiah. Shortly after making contact with the tech priests of the Mechanicus, the Treaty of Mars was signed. The Mechanicum would be able to keep its culture, forge worlds, and have access to any new technology uncovered, while the Imperium would be provided with the industrial might of Mars. The Treaty of Mars provided the Imperium with a potent new ally, while at the same time preventing a costly war at the start of the Great Crusade. During the Great Crusade, it very quickly became apparent that those who were able to tap into the warp were quite capable of using it as a very potent weapon. To this end, specialized battle psychers known as librarians became a common sight throughout the legions. Yet as the warp grew to become unstable once again, anomalies, mutations and deaths began to increase amongst psychers. As certain legions began to dive ever deeper into the esoteric arts, I'm looking at you over there, Magnus, actions had to be taken. To this end, the Council of Nicaea was called, which outlawed all forms of psychers except for the most necessary ones and dissolved the librariuses within each legion. Whether for good or ill intentions, the mandate of the Council of Nicaea would prove disastrous for the Imperium at the outset of the Horus Heresy. While the emperor was cautious when it came to psychers, he did realize the potential such individuals held. To this end, he created the Astronomica, validated the Neves Nobelite, and made extensive use of telepathic hubs and relays. While this seems like a small thing, you have to remember that up to this point, psychers were persecuted across the galaxy for their abilities, and would now prove invaluable to the Imperium's existence. While the Emperor cannot be blamed for most of the Primarchs that fell to chaos during the heresy, there is one individual that I do believe he truly failed. Angron was the Primarch of the World Eaters Legion, and upon his discovery was found to be leading a slave army in open revolt against the overlords of Nuceria. By the time the Emperor found Angron, his slave army was heavily outnumbered and would surely be destroyed the following day. Not wanting to lose one of his sons, the Emperor teleported Angron away from the battlefield. This was against the wishes of Angron, who wanted to stay and fight with his slave army. Afterwards, it seemed like the Emperor spent little time with Angron and simply handed him over to his legion for them to sort it out. This seems strangely uncharacteristic to me for the Emperor, which leads me to believe that he probably had a good enough reason to do so, but he did, in my opinion, treat Angron more like a weapon than one of his sons. The truly defining moment for the Emperor came when he allowed himself to be interned into the Golden Throne. While it is true this preserved his life, it did so at the price of unimaginable physical, mental and spiritual pain. This act would allow the Imperium to survive after the Emperor's fall, and is seen as the greatest single act of self-sacrifice within the Imperium today. Horus was the first Primarch to be found by the Emperor and actually grew up at his side. To this end, Horus became the Emperor's favorite son, which is quite understandable as the two shared a very deep bond forged in the fires of warfare. To this end, the Emperor at first refused the fact that Horus had rebelled, even punishing those who brought him news of Horus's fall before it became apparent. This would actually continue during their duel, as the Emperor was unwilling to strike down his favorite son, allowing Horus to mortally wound him as a result. It is perhaps a cruel twist of fate that love would be the downfall of the Emperor rather than any failing in his character. Well, that's it for my video, guys. I hope you found it enjoyable. Make sure to write down in the comment section below and tell me your opinions of the Emperor's greatest achievements or failings. I'll see you all again next time.